Welcome to Career Tools. This week, Career Crisis Chapter 2, how to help someone you know is about to be or has been laid off. Here we go. So we get this question a lot when people are in trouble.
Yep.
And we respond the same way every time.
We do.
And we find it incredibly helpful. And I think a lot of people out there don't know what to say, don't know what to do when people come to them and say, oh, I'm going to get laid off, or I'm thinking about, even if I'm thinking about looking for a new job is a standard two-part discussion that you ought to have.
It's kind of like all things where someone you know is in trouble. All things where something bad has happened to a friend. You feel like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say,
right.
And I really want to help, but I feel ineffective.
Yeah, and just like the standard rule is if you read enough about people who have had a terrible tragedy at home, you just have to show up. You don't even have to ask anything, just show up. Don't expect to say anything, just listen. Yeah. Just sit there and say, I'm here.
Exactly.
Right? So, okay, what do you do when a friend is about to be laid off or has been laid off? What do you do? What do you say?
So the first thing is you ask for their resume, and you ask what they want to do and where they want to do it.
Yeah, that's our famous phrase, right? What do you want to do?
Where do you want to do it?
Right? And it's amazing. People don't have a good answer to it. It just shocks me every time. Now, I know I'm jaded, but still. Okay?
Use your network. That's
Allow
the one thing you can do.
Allow them to leverage your network.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
And then rinse and repeat.
Yeah. Okay, good. Sounds like Procter & Gamble. I like it. Okay. Ask for the resume. Before you get started, I have to say, I've had some people say this is not the way we should proceed because it's an affront, or this person's hurt, or they're sad, or they're fearful, or they're afraid, and asking for the resume immediately implies, oh, something else I haven't done. And my immediate response is like, what? What? I mean, do you want me to be helpful, or do you want me to provide sorrowful crisis counseling? Right?
Should we just cry together, or should we do something useful?
Yeah, let's be useful. We both sound like high D's.
We do. Okay, and I can see that point of view, but I also think if
well, I can see that point of view too, and it's wrong. Okay, it's wrong. It's ineffective. People don't turn to you and say, "I just want to cry on your shoulder," and if I cry on your shoulder, then it'll be fine because crying on my shoulder will get me another job. Or even if you lose a little bit of cool points because you've asked a tough question, if you're the one that helps them get what they need, why wouldn't that be a good thing? So first step, ask for the resume.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a multitude of reasons why we want a resume. Okay. And the first of all is you don't know that person as well as you think you do in the work context.
Absolutely.
You might have known each other since you were kids. I have a friend I've known her since I was 13. I know roughly what she does, but I don't really know what she's achieved in her career. I don't know what she's like at work. I've never seen her at work. Yeah. I don't know what kind of things she likes doing or doesn't like doing. She comes home and moans about her boss, but doesn't everybody?
Right.
So a resume is a picture of somebody's working life.
Almost their entire working life in most cases.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's also the professional image that they want to project. It gives you an idea of who they are at work, what image they project.
So you're saying we need their resume in order to understand who they are professionally, rather than simply assuming that our assumptions are accurate.
Exactly.
Yeah. I get resumes periodically which have no undergraduate schooling. And they're in a job that clearly requires today undergraduate schooling. And I realize, I assumed this guy went to school like I did, right? And folks, just for the record, when I say school, I usually mean undergraduate. And I realized, well, I don't know this person. It happens to me. A third of the resumes I get, I'm like, wow, this guy spent 13 years in the Peace Corps. I didn't know that. He's an executive. He's very successful. I would have assumed he came up through the ranks. I literally have a bad habit of building a background.
Yeah, like an assumption.
Yeah, it's a gigantic assumption, which is classic high D, high I kind of thinking.
Absolutely. I once flew with a pilot who had a degree in religious studies, which just goes to show you never know what people do.
Well, I think prayer is part of a pilot's repertoire, but anyway.
That's true.
Okay, you say we need to know who they are professionally. Why?
Okay, so the next thing you're going to do in a minute is send emails or contact people in your network.
Yep.
And in order to do that, you have to know who they are professionally and who that's going to connect with in your network.
Yes.
You when we say build a network, we say build indiscriminately.
Yeah.
We need to know who the people are in our network and at what kind of place the person we're trying to help is in order to make a good connection. We're not gonna, in a minute when we get to using our network, we are not going to just shotgun their resume out to everyone we know.
Well, you mentioned a pilot. My brother's a pilot for Southwest Airlines. If somebody wanted to be a pilot, I would send a resume to my brother who's a pilot. I don't know how much help he could be, but If a person doesn't want to be a pilot, I'm probably not going to send them their resume to my brother.
Pointless.
I have to know what their professional background is. Okay, good. Okay.
And the next thing is, you also need their resume to know what it is you're selling to your network. And this is maybe a little harsh, but you're a professional, you have a network that has value, and you might know this person as a great neighbor, or as a great person in your church, or as a great PTA person, but they might not be a great professional when you see their resume.
Yeah.
And as much as you want to help, damaging your network to help them is not a good thing to do.
Well, in fact, I have a general rule, is if I have to say this guy's my neighbor, that's a completely different thing. That I've worked with this guy, he's exceptional, here's his resume. Right? In fact, if somebody says to me, I want to help my neighbor, unless I see a resume that's wow, and in fact, when that's the case, if a resume I'm going to get from a guy who's helping his neighbor is wow, the guy who's sending it to me is going to say, Mark, he's not going to describe him as a neighbor. He's going to describe, I've got a guy who is simply outstanding. Wait till you see his resume, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you could call me wrong, or you could call me jaded, or you could say, oh, there goes Mark again. He's always evaluating. Yes, I am. But I want to see their resume because I want to know what I'm dealing with. And I reserve the right to make an evaluation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Both of the person and of their resume.
Yeah, you've totally reassured me. I feel so much better about myself.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
Make you feel better.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, you can't send a bad resume, or a resume that just, I don't know, damages your reputation out to your network.
So this is not part of this cast. But look, if someone says to me, hey, Mark, I'm about to get laid off, I've got 60 days or whatever, and they're smart enough to contact me in advance, great, happy to help, and I get a resume that's awful, I don't forward it, do I? No. What do I say?
Dude, your resume is crap. Do something about it.
Okay, good. That's why.
If you really want to help, or if you don't want to help, then you just go, yeah, I'll send it out, and you don't do anything with it, right?
I just got an email from a guy. I just responded to it this morning. We're recording this on a Sunday afternoon, and just got an email from a guy that wanted me to review his resume. Guys, don't send me a resume to review. I've got too much other stuff to do. But because he had some history with us, I went ahead and sent it, and I sent him a review, and it wasn't flattering, but he asked, and he knows me. He's been listening since 2005, 8 years now. He knows in much the same way that people who send us resumes for the anonymized resume review process. When I read the paragraph of review, I was like, well, and I would say to him now, I will not send this resume to any of my friends. There are too many things that are not mistakes that just simply don't sell and provide huge questions. And you know, if I'd gotten this resume from somebody who expected my network to be leveraged, I would have said no. Not going to do it.
Yeah.
Good.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So good. So it's okay. What we're saying is it's okay to have a filter of, I like you and I want to help you, and not with this resume am I going to help you.
Yeah.
And until I get a better resume, I'm not going to help you. And folks, listen carefully to what Wendy said. You're not going to damage your network simply because this person's a friend. And what I found early in my career, that's what motivated me to have the tough conversation up front, to protect my network. Back when networks were phone calls, right? I would literally say to somebody, I love you and I want to help you. And this resume, the resume is the currency of the realm in a search. And your currency is worth zip. Right? You have
minus zip.
Yeah, minus zip. Yeah. It's not only negative, it also won't get you anything. It will absolutely harm me and my reputation, because the assumption is if Mark Horstman or Wendy Lord or somebody else forwards a resume, there's an assumption that there is at least a direct or an indirect or an assumed endorsement.
Absolutely.
Right? And a resume that doesn't meet certain standards. Now, folks, you may have different standards than managerial rituals. We certainly respect that. We think you're wrong, but we respect your right to have your own opinion. But if it's not a good resume and you think this isn't a good resume, you have no obligation to forward it at all. And that's why you ask for resume first.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, good. All right. Next thing. This is my you and I, we were at Mama Sita's here a few months ago. Mike was in town. We were doing website stuff or whatever. And you commented that every time I order a margarita, it's always the same. Margarita, frozen, no salt, iced tea glass. It is the exact same cadence, the exact same thing every time. And of course, the people at Mamacita's, having lived in Fredericksburg for 25 years, know me. Hi, Mr. Horstman, how are you? They know what to bring me and so on. Only the new waitresses or waiters go, iced tea glass, and then they figure it out. Well, same thing with this. A friend of mine calls me and says, I need some help, I'm getting laid off. Okay, send me your resume, and what do you want to do? Where do you want to do it?
Absolutely. It just, every time.
Yeah, every single, and I probably sound like put a quarter in the slot of his mouth and let him spit the thing out.
I think when you've heard you say it 25 times, it's like the blessing at the end of service.
Yeah.
Go in peace and praise the Lord. It's just like that.
Exactly.
But I think when you hear it once, it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I feel because I've said it so many times, I expect them to understand this is the second coin of the realm. This is what everybody wants to know. You don't ask, how can I help you? Right? Why would you ask someone who's getting laid off, can you lend me some money? No, that's not. I mean, look, that may in fact be necessary, but okay, good. So ask what they want to do and where do they want to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So it's, like we said, it's no use sending your resume to a contact of yours and that, if we sent a resume to your brother and he says, I can get this guy an interview, and then you find out he doesn't want to be a pilot. It's like, oops.
Yeah.
So
good.
It's kind of fundamental. It's like going into the doctor and he says, where's the pain? There's no point in starting with your head if the pain's in your foot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like people who say to me, I have a headache. Should I have brain surgery? I don't know. I just don't know.
Exactly.
Okay. It is a pretty straightforward question.
It is, but a lot of people haven't thought about it, especially if the being laid off has come as a shock to them.
Yeah.
They haven't known it. They just don't know. They're in their imagination. The next thing was Thanksgiving, and they were still going to be at this job, and they were, they were thinking about saving for Christmas presents. In their imagination, they had no need to leave.
Right.
And so they don't know.
Yeah. I think when you've recently changed jobs, the job change process caused you to be thinking about what you were doing and what you've done, and maybe how your career is smooth, or how that was an interesting change, or how you made the transition you wanted to make. But every day that goes by, the number of days the more days you are away from a job change and the angst of it, the more you are unaware of the sense that your life goes back into the norm of, I'm working, I go to work, I take care of my kids, my spouse and I take care of the kids, my life partner and I do what it is we do. We're thinking about next month going on vacation. We're thinking about summer vacation plans, hypothetically holiday plans, and so on. And it literally is it's like when people get sick. They hate being sick. They absolutely hate it. And then 3 months later, 4 months later, 5 months later, they've forgotten how awful being sick is. And you get sick, and it's a double whammy. You're sick, and then you remember how awful being sick is, how the flu is just awful, awful, awful.
You're on a train track, and it's just making that nice rhythmic sound.
Right.
And then you get to a level crossing, and you've got to stop. And that sudden stop is very kind of...
I love it when people in our podcast actually make inadvertent references to the greatest American song of all time, Rhapsody in Blue, which actually has train noises in it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So quite often, if people haven't thought about it, you'll get anything or something that pays the bills, and that isn't a helpful answer to you. Like, if they really wanted something to pay the bills, they can go to Walmart or Starbucks, and they're always hiring, and they don't need your help. So we've got some questions here that might help you narrow it down a little.
And I think it's important that we explain. You tell me. I'm going to surprise you. This is not in the show notes. What percentage of people that you've asked the question, what do you want to do and where do you want to do it, have a crisp answer?
0.
I would say 10, right? Apparently, I'm just more generous and kind than you.
Apparently. You grade more easily.
Yeah. And folks, the point of this question is to help you help them, but it's also to educate them. This is what people want to know, and they have to be able to answer that. And I think, haven't we done a cast on this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. So if in fact they come back with some lame answer, like really anything, I'm open to anything, which I think some people say is, I don't want to restrict you, but you don't understand, dude. That's not what I'm asking. I'm gonna create restrictions whether you want me to or not. So how can we help them? Okay.
So we've got a series of follow-up questions. So do you want to stay in the same job that you've had recently? The same kind of job that you've had recently.
Okay, so with the idea, again, if they've given you some vague, stupid answer, That's a good one to start with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to stay in the same kind of industry that you've worked in? Like, you've got an opportunity to change. Do you want to stay in manufacturing, or do you want to move?
So I think we'll need to do another cast about this at some point. But what about the people who say, well, I never really thought about it? Or, well, of course. They don't understand that there is an opportunity here. Have they done an analysis of their skills? Is there another industry? Look, I can't think. I was hoping an industry would pop into my mind that I would want to get out of. Well, okay, this is probably a bad one, but publishing, right? Print publishing, newspapers, for instance. I could probably find some of my friends who are journalists and say, you could probably do something different, because if you're writing for a print journalist, but an actual hard paper print thing, there's less and less opportunities in the next 20 or 30 years. The New York Times is now back to, has been shedding off assets that were print-based. And people miss that. Now, there's nothing wrong with saying, I definitely want to stay in publishing. I definitely want to stay in sports media or sports marketing. That's fine, as long as it's a considered thought. It's a considered choice, rather than just, well, that's what I have to do. And some people who respond to the threats and challenges who tend to retrench, then immediately go, well, I just want to stay doing what I'm doing. It's not that you're a career counselor and that you should convince them to do something different, but we'll probably need to do a cast about how to help somebody when they have that kind of issue. Okay,
absolutely.
Good. Okay, good.
Okay, do you want to stay in the same location?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this, what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? We're essentially breaking the question down to try to get them to think more precisely. Yeah. Okay, good.
Would you consider X, different role, different industry, different location? Sometimes if people aren't able to say yes or no, I want to stay, if you give them a suggestion, then that helps them say, no, I definitely wouldn't do that. Or yes, that would be interesting to me. And that helps them broaden their thinking.
It has been my experience probably 80 to 90% of the time when I ask someone, would you consider something different? I'm, this or that, based on my considerable experience, looking at the skill set, the basket of skills this particular person whom I know has, and my knowledge of them, 80 to 90% of the time they say no. I'm like, well, okay, you have oh yeah. Now, you may have had a different experience. No, it's probably because I have a specific idea in mind, but I'm amazed at the number of people who don't say, well, sure, I'm not sure that's right, but would I consider it? Would I be open to it? Heck yeah, I'd be open to anything, right? Okay. And what we're not asking with what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? Would you be open to anything anywhere? Because at some point they will become that, right? In fact, I remember you and I talked about the guy who wrote a book about his year at Starbucks. This is 4 or 5 years ago. And he learned a great deal about Starbucks, even though he felt like he was taking an enormous step down. And in fact, he had. But not that I asked my friends, will you work at Starbucks for a year? Because you don't need my help to get hired there. But I'm always surprised. I've got this idea that you might be great for this. Oh, no. Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't found that, but
okay.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah. What do you like most about the roles you've had recently, and what do you like least? So most people can't tell you what they're good at, but most people can tell you what they like doing.
Yeah.
And those two things are pretty highly correlated. Most people don't like doing things that they're not good at,
right,
and they like doing things that they're good at.
Yeah.
And most people can't tell you.
I hate this part though. You and I can go around the tree about this one. The whole idea of, do you know what you're good at? And they don't know. Like, really? Okay, if you're 22 or 25, fine. If you're 35 and you can't tell me what you're good at, really? A life not examined isn't a life worth living. But anyway, but you're right. I think this is an easy way to get at some of that. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So what you like most and what you like least.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this probably isn't a one-time conversation either. You're probably going to have this conversation more than once, and they'll narrow it down and they'll change their mind over time. When you initially find out you're getting laid off, it's like, I'll only take something that's more pay than I have now.
Yeah.
When you've been going for 6 months, often you change your mind.
Yeah, and I think, folks, you're probably going to feel like the moment you get a call from something like this, you're like, oh, there's some work here for me. Yes, there is. And you want to pay that karma forward, my friends, because 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, 10 years from now.
It always could be. Ask not for whom the bill tolls.
It tolls for thee. Exactly right. Okay. Next thing is use your network, right?
Yeah.
So now we know, hopefully, what they want to do and where they want to do it. And we've got a resume that meets some sort of standard.
Yeah. So what we're not going to do is just send one email out to everybody that we know that says, hey, my guy needs some help. Can you help him?
Yeah.
One, because that sense of I've just been shotgunned is not good. Everybody who's in your network thinks, oh, so I'm one of 100. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And the other thing is, if you send an email out to a group of people and you don't say, Bob, please take action X, everybody thinks everybody else is doing it. It's a good email lesson in general, but it's specific to this one.
Yeah. So how do we combat that generalized ennui, if you will?
So instead, we recommend you send a personalized email or call or drop by or however you would normally contact this person, and give specific ways that he can help or ask him specific questions. So we've got an example here. So it's an email.
You're recommending sending an email to your friend Bob.
Yeah. Okay, so Bob, my friend Jemima is about to be laid off from XYZ Corp. I've worked with her on the PTA and she's a great professional, and so I've offered to reach out to see if anyone I know can help her. She has the network programming skills I know you were looking for some time ago, and she's interested in working for A, B, and C companies or any medium-sized company in the Olathe area, though she'd travel a bit further if necessary. She'd like to stick with a similar role to the one she's being laid off from. Are you still looking for those skills? Do you know anyone in the area that I can direct her to? Do you have any useful tips for her? I appreciate anything you can do for her. Looking forward to seeing you at the girls' swim meet next week. Jim.
And of course, people with licenses can
copy and paste.
Copy and paste, right. Okay, good. I like that. It's specific, it's direct. And then, of course, the point I like, the thing I like most about this is I'm not just sending you a mail at the end. I say, I'll see you next week at the swim meet. This is how people do business. Hey, I need some help. A friend of mine needs some help. You don't know her, but she's good. Mm-hmm. And in fact, what I've learned in my case is if I send an email to somebody and say, you shouldn't miss hiring this person because of the reputation manager tools and careers have, that we get a lot of traction. Folks, please don't bombard me with emails about the job you want and my network and so on. But I like the fact that it's still a message between Bob and Jim.
Yeah.
That it's not just, hey guys, I'm going to send out a note. Anybody got anything? Let me know.
Yeah.
Because you're right. Everybody goes, I can ignore that.
And Bob's got 3 questions. Unfortunately, I'm not looking for those skills. I did hear that someone else was. She might want to try there, or I've got a contact at that place. And hey, if she's thinking about doing a course, I've heard that X is in desperate need in this area.
Right.
I don't know. 3 specific questions helps Bob respond easily.
Right.
And if you make it easy for people to respond, they're much more likely to respond.
Yeah. Good. Another thing I'll just mention, we mentioned our resumes earlier, it just popped into my head. Keep the resume, folks. Keep it. Put it in a folder, resumes of friends. And when people call you and say, do you know anybody who does X, Y, or Z? It takes no time at all to open up. Actually, I've been known to highlight 30 Word documents, right-click open. And of course, Word always says, do you really want to open 30 Word documents? Yes, I do. And then I look at them real fast, boom, boom, and I just hit and delete. Not delete, close. And then I find somebody who says, hey, actually, it was 6 months ago. This guy's looking for a job. And I don't know.
He's worth talking to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, good. All right, last point you made was my favorite, rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat. Okay. So this isn't a one-time thing. So one set of emails to your friends is not going to help this person get a job. And things change in 2 months, in 3 months, in 4 months, in 6 months.
Right.
Things in people's industries change. They change jobs. They change managers. Their divisions get reorganized. All sorts of things are happening that may change their answer 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line. So you need to keep thinking about your friend and opportunities that might help them. Like suddenly something might come to you, or you might meet a guy on a plane or whatever.
This is what I do. Now, this doesn't work for very many people who are listening, but this is what I do. If I get a request from a friend, someone whom I know, whom I can vouch for, I will send a few resumes, send the resume out, provided the resume is not crap, which it often, usually, always, pick your choice, right? And then I will yell, because her desk is 10 feet from mine, 20 feet from mine. I would say, Natal, put a note on my calendar once a month, reach out to Joe, the guy who's reached out to me. And I probably send 3 or 4 emails, and then I forget about it. In a month, she says, hey, by the way, you're supposed to reach out to Joe. So what I do is I call Joe or email Joe, hey, how's it going? And just because for the next 6 months, once a month, I reach out and say, what's going on? Not worried. I'm not worried that my network has or hasn't done anything. I'm going to reach out to Joe. Hey, how's it going? What's going on? Right? I am a prince. because for the next 6 months,
You keep it.
I did nothing more than tell my assistant once a month. Now, a lot of you don't have assistants. I respect that. You have OmniFocus. You have tasks.
calendars.
You have recurring tasks in your calendar. You have a calendar item, right? Morning calendar item, something like that. Network outreach on a monthly basis. Now Joe gets a more frequent outreach. You change the recurrence of outreach to Joe to once a month. Simple as that.
That supportiveness is really important.
Yeah. As I'm sure you'd agree, a true friend continues to help.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay.
So, and there's the statistics, this is kind of morbid, but there are statistics that say that the longer you're unemployed, the harder it is to get a job. So poor Joe, it doesn't get any easier for him. And so if you want to be a great friend, then you've got to keep helping him.
Yeah. I find that if it doesn't happen right away, or if it doesn't happen after they feel they've put a lot of effort into it, there is a gradual decline. I believe that statistic. I don't love that statistic because, in fact, usually everybody finds a job at some point. And the statistics are a little bit, I just don't like some of the methodology. What I will say is this. Your friend who is still looking after 5 months is disheartened.
Absolutely.
Is absolutely disheartened. Whether or not he gets a job at the level you want him to, or the level he wants to, or she wants to, whatever, that's irrelevant. They're disheartened. And I will tell you, karmic moment again. If you're looking for a job and you haven't found one, it's amazing how your friends don't call. Mm-hmm. And the one who does call, who says, no, I'm willing to have an awkward conversation and ask and say, hey, I'm thinking about you. I love you, man. I'm praying for you, whatever. That person is a friend forever. And 2 years later, when you're in a pinch and you need something, that's the person hopefully will stand up. Now, if that person doesn't stand up for you, man, they may not be the friend you want them to be. That's a different story.
Yeah.
So wrap up.
Okay, so ask for the resume, ask what they want to do and where.
And ask the way Mark does.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? Where do you want to do it?
Use your network and rinse and repeat.
I just want to say again, I love the fact that because I say it that way, and I actually disagree with you. I think a lot of people know that it's a line, but they now know it's a line, and lines that are rehearsed, they should know, I've done my rehearsed part of this conversation. It's time for you to do your rehearsed part. And if you're not rehearsed, it means I've got an issue. I've got a concern. Anyway, okay.
So this is the guidance, some of the guidance that we give every now and again that's all about karma. If you believe in karma, there's no or little immediate benefit to you helping your friend get a job. But it does come, I absolutely believe it comes back to you in time. Don't do it for reciprocation now. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
The network building, Cass, we don't talk about networking. We talk about building a network. And one of the things we say is give, right?
Yeah.
Just give, yeah. As the quote, I can't find the citation right now, but what will we put on earth to do if not to help one another through? Simple as that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Good.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Hope you found this one effective. Helping somebody who's been laid off is a tough thing to do, but it's worth doing well. See you all next week.